The following is a Podbeard production.
From the deepest bowels of your imagination.
Actually, he's from Canada there, bud.
From the famed Hotter Show Studios, this is The Hotter Show.
What is up, everybody? Wheel Audio here today on episode 214 of The Hotter Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thanks so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I am like doing backflips and running sprints around the room because I am so excited for this episode of the show. We have a killer pod for you here today as I sit down with Jan Murphy, who is the CEO and co-founder of Chinlock Wrestling, as well as you'll know him from a bunch of other really cool stuff, which we will talk about, of course. But it was a great chat. I had so much fun with Jan. I knew he was going to be a great interview because he's a professional and, you know, he knows how to talk and that. I knew it was going to be great. And we do cover quite a bit of ground. We talk about the early days of Chinlock Wrestling. He has a great story about picking up 3 legendary wrestlers. We, of course, talk a lot about the Chinlock event coming up in the Lessons Convention, how he got started with wrestling, his relationship with CJ Felony, as well as the Chinlock Wrestling School. And we end off kind of having a fun chat just overall about wrestling. So I know you guys are going to enjoy the hell out of this chat. It was so much fun. I like to feel that Jan had fun as well. So it's always good for me when I can have someone that I can just kind of once in a while say something and then they just go off and be super entertaining. So you guys are definitely going to enjoy this. We talk a lot about the Chinlock 5 and the Legends Convention event coming up June 15th, which is, as you guys are hearing this, next weekend. Oh, I'm so excited for that event. But we're going to talk about all of that. I'm not going to take a lot of time here on this intro because we do go long. We burn the midnight oil a bit. I think it was about $1.35 ish, 36, 37-ish. I do want to stress that unfortunately near the end of the podcast, we get through all the event and talking about kind of his start with the journey, his journey with wrestling and all that. But unfortunately, near the end, we get into some WWE talk and the connection. I was actually on my phone on my hotspot on data because my internet went out. Big surprise. So that was why I kind of had to end the chat abruptly. I didn't want to ruin the flow of the chat we were having. But there's also a very big announcement at the end. So even though I do apologize that he's kind of a little choppy, but he was going on such a great spiel about actually Brock Lesnar in particular, and I really loved what he was saying. So I was like, I'm not cutting this. I still want to keep it in, and I cleaned it up as best I could. So I do apologize. It's not quite up to snuff, but like 80% of the chat is you know, pretty great quality, and I'm very happy when he was just such a great guest, so you guys definitely enjoy it. But before we get into that, I want to give a much needed shout out to my friends over at Seat Giant. You guys are familiar with Seat Giant. They are a ticket resale website selling tickets for all different types of events, whether it's a sporting event, concert event, theater event. They got you covered with great pricing, regardless of whether or not you want to sit up in the nosebleeds or if you want to be front and center. They got you covered. They have a super easy to use website. The little light up maps, you can visually see where you're going to be sitting, which I personally really like that because I tend to get lost easily sometimes when I'm buying tickets. And also, they have a full money back guarantee if there are any issues with your tickets. And let me tell you, as someone who's been in that situation where I was not able to get into a concert and my tickets were not refunded because of where I bought them, that really is something I enjoy about CGI because they care. They know how much these events mean to you, the consumer, and they want to make sure that if for any reason you cannot enjoy your event, they have your back. And that's just a really cool thing. And if that wasn't enough, you want more? Really? Okay, well, how about a little discount at checkout when you use the coupon code PODBEARD? That is PODBEARD, PODBEARD, all one word, all lowercase. You'll save yourself a little something at checkout, and it also throws a little something back to your friends here at the Hotter Show as well as Podbeard Network. Everybody wins. What's not to like? Don't mess around with any of the website today. Go on seatgiant.ca or .com. The code works for both today and get the tickets for the event you want to see. Because at Seat Giant, they just don't sell tickets, they sell experiences. With that, we're ready to roll into this podcast today. My chat with Jan Murphy, CEO and co-founder of Chinlock. Let's get into it. I'm super excited about this because right now my guest at this time is the co-founder and CEO of Chinlock Wrestling, who have a huge event coming up on June 15th, which you bet your ass we will be discussing. But I also want to talk to him about his entire career and also about his love of professional wrestling. You may recognize him from his wrestling columns seen all over and his interviews with the top stars in wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to welcome Jan Murphy on the show. Jan, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, thanks for having me on, TJ. I really appreciate it. I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I'm a little stressed out. I'm 2 weeks away from the largest thing I've ever done in my life, but I'm hanging in here.
Well, that's good to hear. Is it at least a good stressed?
It's a combination, right? It's a little bit overwhelmed by what's coming and last minute details, and there's always snags that come about. There's a lot of coordination that will be happening the week of the show, right up to the show and right after the show. This city is, of course, notorious for its waiting to the last minute to buy tickets. So that's stressful as a promoter with a $100,000 budget, on a show like this. But no, it's mostly good stress, excitement, a little bit of nerves. You want this to be the best that it can be, and we want it to raise a lot of money.
Absolutely, and that's the thing with an event like this. I remember because I've wanted to have you on, and I've wanted to kind of get in contact with you the last couple of Chinlocks, because obviously, as you know, with our connection with Jason, he's like, dude, you got it. Yeah. So it's good to hear though that things are going well, and I mean, with those last minute snags, I mean, I know that even the day of, you're going to, you got to go pick people up and make sure that flights are happening and all that. So I can imagine how stressful it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are a lot of people coming in for this event, a lot of flights. I think we booked 13 or 14 flights. All of those people have to be picked up. Some of those people booked their own flights because they were working for other promotions the day before, so they're stressing me out by not coming into Toronto until Saturday morning, and I need them in Kingston Saturday morning. So it's not without its challenges, but this is a monstrous learning curve for me. I mean, I'll come out of this event so much, more experienced and so much more prepared if this is something that we ever tackle again. I've learned a ton about promoting, about running a major event, because make no mistake, this is a major event.
Oh, of course. And that's like, even in my neck of the woods, I'm about 2 hours from Kingston, but even in my neck of the woods, like, I'm starting to hear rumblings. And of course, with the Oshawa scene as well, I'm seeing things pop up, and like, that's very exciting for me because I've just kind of recently I've kind of gotten back into my true love of professional wrestling. So I'm super excited for the event. I know that there's quite a few of my listeners who are as well. So that's very good to hear. And I guess the whole thing with that learning curve in that is you're always learning when you're doing stuff like this. I mean, as I'm sure you can attest to, every time you do something, or every time you there's an issue or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, won't be doing that again.
Yeah, you learn different things each time. I mean, if I were booking this again, we just had a conversation with Sean Quigley from Youth Diversion today, and I said, if we do this again in, in a couple of years, or year 10, whatever we do after this, probably the one thing I would change would be the ticketing structure. We thought we had simplified it, but with the questions that I've been fielding almost daily since they went on sale March 1st, clearly it's not simple enough. So, that would be one thing I would change. start some things a little earlier, leave some things till a little bit later. But all in all, I mean, this team has been amazing. I mean, I get to be the face. I get to be the guy that everybody thinks, runs this whole thing. But there's a team behind me that works with me. You mentioned Jason. He's a key part of that team. Justin, Sean, Jackie. There's a whole crew of us that meet. I mean, we've been meeting since January for this event. We started meeting last year, planning this event. So this event, by the time it happens in 2 weeks, will be more than a year in the making.
That's crazy. And even with the hearing your appearance on I'll give them a shout out, the Schwa Style podcast, or a great podcast. I heard your appearance on that when you were on. Hearing you kind of talk a little bit about the first couple Chinlocks and kind of how that got started was absolutely fascinating to me. And I want to ask, just because we've kind of started off on this, and I want to ask you about like just professional wrestling and some stuff about interviews and that you've done. But as we're on the topic, how did kind of you get started with Chinlock, with that first event you did with Justin? I
mean, my involvement in independent wrestling didn't happen until probably 2007, 8, 9, somewhere in there. Might have even been 2009 or 10. Actually, 2009 I was involved because my first daughter was born, and I was involved with it at that point. Kingston used to have an independent company here called the Ontario Championship Wrestling, of which Justin was a key player. So it was Justin who invited me to come out, and Adam Conton actually reached out to me. They wanted me to come out and see what they did, and they were looking for some media coverage. At the time, I was still running a weekly wrestling column here in the Wig. Probably took myself a little too seriously in those days as far as my being a journalist, but I would soon learn that there was a Kingston police officer who moonlighted as a professional wrestler. Well, that to me as a newspaper guy was a great story. So that's sort of how they got me to come out the first time. Was Jason Cage was a Kingston police officer wrestling at night, just screamed page one. So, and that's indeed where that story ended up, was Kingston police officer who moonlights as a pro wrestler. So that was my introduction to OCW. So I spent time around OCW, did a little stint as the general manager per se, was involved in some storylines, and at one point they decided they wanted to run a bit of a larger event. Had I not been involved with that promotion at that time, my life would be very different. When we went to put together that larger event, we were running names by one another, who could we bring in, and eventually we settled on Billy Gunn and X-Pac, two original DX members, and then we were bouncing some other names by, and I threw out the name Tommy Dreamer, and they said, we'll see if he's available. So I found a contact for him. I emailed him. A bunch of days went by. I mean, might have even been a week, and then all of a sudden, I get a reply. Sorry, I didn't see this in my inbox. I am available. This is my rate, flight, blah, blah, blah. So I took it back to the group and we agreed. So we brought up in June of 2011 here in Kingston, probably will be almost a year to date when this event happens in 2 weeks. We brought up Tommy Dreamer, X-Pac, and Billy Gunn. Funny story. Justin and I ended up being the guys to go pick them up at the airport. And I got my first taste of Cranky Billy Gunn. And I got
the famous Cranky Billy Gunn.
I got my first taste of why you don't book them, pickups with people too far apart. We get to the airport. The first person in is Dreamer. He'd been up all night. He tells this story pretty funny. Like, he'd been up all night because he worked a show. No time to really sleep. Just went to the airport, flew in. So he landed fairly early. We found him, and he's like, "Great, let's go." And we're like, "Well, we have to wait." "Oh, who are we waiting for?" Billy Gunn and X-Pac." "Oh, okay. What time are they flying in?" Billy's in about 2 hours." Well, you could see the color change in Tommy's face. He got really, really pissed off, mumbled a couple things. So Justin and I just walked away to let him cool off. And we thought, man, this is a disaster. Here we are, been with this guy 5 minutes and he hates us already. So we went, eventually we went back over and sat down. He had enough time to kind of cool off. We were talking to him, and then we saw this person coming along, pushing a cart, and they had, they were all hunched over and they had blankets over top of them. And I thought it was a homeless person, to be honest with you. And I said, look at this homeless person coming down the middle of the airport. And Dreamer looked at me and he said, "That's no homeless person. That's X-Pac." And sure enough, it was X-Pac. He just came in from doing an East Coast gig at which Hulk Hogan was booked. And he was in rough shape, and all he wanted to do was go sleep. So we went and we put him in the car. He slept in the car while we waited for Billy to land. Billy lands, comes through customs, gets a hard time. Well, Billy Gunn is cranky at the best of times. He's just an intense, cranky individual. And he was not pleased that he got hassled coming into Canada. So I had Cranky Dreamer, hungover X-Pac, and Cranky Billy Gunn to drive all the way back to Kingston, almost 3 hours.
What a combo.
Yeah, one wants to eat right away. Billy Gunn's always hungry. So we stopped and we ate, and I remember X-Pac ordered this, like, just nasty looking sweet, like, something you'd order at Denny's now, like the triple maple pancake thing, and had whipped cream all over it. And Billy ordered 10 egg whites and something else. So we brought them back. We had that show, and that show ended. We did a short after party. I had to leave, and I spent 3 hours talking to Tommy in the car on the way back to Kingston. And when I went to leave, he gave me his number. He said, "Hey, stay in touch." So I did. I stayed in touch. I offered him a column in the Whig Standard, which ran for about a year. And we just became really, really good friends. And without, Tommy's friendship, nothing in my career goes the way that it has gone. Tommy started helping me get interviews with, former WWE talents, legends, Terry Funk, and, Shane Helms and Edge, and the list just went, Trish Stratus, the list just went on and on and on, because these were all his friends. And then I started hanging around him when he launched House of Hardcore, went down to his first show. I think I've been to 7 or 8 of his shows overall, including helping him run 3. The first one in Toronto, Niagara Falls last year, Napanee. So this will be our 4th show together in Canada. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from him, and I learned a lot from Justin in the previous OCW experience. So to make a long story longer, I was approached 3-4 years ago by a friend of mine who wanted to run a charitable event around Christmas time, like a feel-good kind of thing. There was no, OCW had kind of stopped running shows. There was a promoter from Cornwall who had been running some shows in the area. I said, "Hey, it'd be really cool if you had like a wrestling show and donate the proceeds to charity." And she's like, "Oh, that's a great idea." So I connected her with the Cornwall promoter. And anyway, a long story short on that one, I was down in New York and Philadelphia with Dreamer doing House of Hardcore, driving home from his house. My phone rings just outside of New York, and it's her saying that he was pulling the pin on the show.
Oh, no.
So I said, let me call you back. I called Justin. I said, look, I helped bring this to reality. I think we should try and save this.
Yeah, it's got your name on it too, right?
Yeah, I mean, so by the time I got home, 5.5 or 6 hours later, he and I had put together a show. He called, the workers all around here, found us a ring. We already had a venue, and I started phoning in special guests. I called up Ron Hutchison. I called up Spenny. I called up Jimmy Corderas, and I just called in favors. I said, I've done features on all of them in my career. All of them I consider friends, and they all agreed to come. We pulled that out of the fire. This was 3 weeks before the show was scheduled to happen. So we managed to pull that one out of the fire. In the first year, it was just called Live Pro Wrestling. And we had probably like 125 people come out. We raised about $3,000 for Hands of Hope. And that was the beginning of Chinlock Wrestling. I convinced Justin that we should make it an annual thing. And my intention when we set out was that for it to only ever be an annual thing. They're big events to plan. There's a lot of stress around it. With wrestling, it's not that easy. There's different personalities, different people, but our show always has had a different feel because it's always been about the charity. People have always come and worked for less, volunteered, worked for nothing, serious discounts with ring rentals, things like that, so that we could turn over as much money as we could. Year 2 was when we decided to introduce a legend. I had the idea that we could maybe introduce a legend. So I reached out to the $1 Million Man at, sort of the advice of Dreamer, who said he'd be a good booking and, in our price range. I was standing in line at Loblaws one day picking up some stuff to bring to work to eat because I work evenings. And my phone rang and I could see on the call display it was the $1 Million Man.
That's hilarious.
And so I picked it up and he said, I saw your email to my through my website. Sounds like a great event. It's something I totally would get behind. I'm available. This is my price. I'd love to come up. And immediately booked him. We found a sponsor. That was when I was introduced to the Gino's pizza owner in town here, Noel Morano, who, without him, we're not having this conversation today. Noel's been a sponsor now for 4 shows, and has been so generous to help us bring up legends. The first of which was the $1 Million Man. The big turnaround. That's when we started naming it Chinlock Wrestling. We decided to come up with a name, and I already had Chinlock.com where I did my writing.
Okay.
Which was a name I came up with while I was riding an exercise bike at the YMCA a couple of years prior to that, when I'd asked Justin to create a website where I could archive all of my stuff in case, in this newspaper business, you never know when you're going to get laid off or when your job might not exist. So I wanted somewhere to archive everything I had done at the WIG as far as my feature interviews and all my wrestling coverage. So Chinlock.com, we thought, well, let's just keep the Chinlock family alive. We'll go with Chinlock Wrestling. And that's where Jason came in and created the, in my opinion, the nicest wrestling logo in the business, the Chinlock logo. And the $1 Million Man was our special guest in year 2. Year 3, year 2, I think we raised about $11,000.
Wow.
And year 3 was the one. We brought in Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and to this day I still think he was our most popular guest.
That's crazy.
We sold 700 tickets to that show. You could not move in the gym, and it was that night that I went, this is it. Like, this is what I was meant to do. And we had great night. We raised $26,000, and the place was just packed. It was so fun, and that sort of was when Chinlock sort of established itself as the promotion here in Kingston. And last year we moved to a bigger venue. We had multiple guests with TJ Wilson, Vicky Guerrero, Tito Santana. We had a surprise with Madison Rain, and we had a surprise with the Honky Tonk Man.
Tonk, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then while we were planning last year's event, number 5 felt like it should be special. I've told this story on a couple of different interviews. I'd been to a big Legends of Wrestling convention to see Dreamer in, I think it was 2014. And when I walked in and I saw what was going on, I was like, this is what I want to do one day. It's a wrestling convention with a wrestling show and a wrestling ring set up. And so, sort of borrowing from that model, borrowing from like a Comic-Con model, I pitched the idea last year for 5. I said, well, we're planning 4. We could, look at possibly doing this for 5. Everybody, came on board. I mean, Youth Diversion, I can't say enough about what they've done. Sean is amazing. I mean, none of this happens without Sean saying yes, because as a charity, you need a charity to be in. We're not a charitable company, right? Of course, so to run a charity show, you need to work with the charity. So yeah, we planned out 4. Well, 5 was, being discussed. We came up with a business plan. We found some funding, and then the venue was the closer for that. That kind of gives you the history of Chinlock, but 5 came to be because Leon's became the naming rights holder at the large venue here in Kingston. It was formerly known as the K-Rock Center. Well, they took over the naming rights. I had a friend who works for the Kingston Frontenacs. He brought me together with the owner of Leon's. As soon as we told the owner of Leon's, the charity that was involved, he was able to donate one of his charitable dates to us, basically rendering this 7,000-seat arena free for us. Not quite, but mostly.
Close enough, yeah.
We're paying, almost nothing for it. So when that happened and we secured the funding, we decided we were going to go for it. And that's 3 things. There was the venue through the generosity of Leon's. There was securing the funding for this show, which the Kinsman Club of Kingston stepped up in a huge way. Canadian Tire stepped up in a huge way. And thirdly was I wanted Tommy Dreamer's involvement. Call it what you will. Am I siphoning off of his name? Sure I am. I mean, who wouldn't want to have his name associated with an event? But we're really good friends. We consider each other family. So this is the 4th time that we've worked together. He trusts me. I trust him. I wanted him involved with this, and when he said yes and all the other things fell into place, we announced Chinlock 5.
That is awesome. I love the fact that you touched on, there's a bunch of stuff I was going to ask you, and that's just what a pro you are. You literally touched on everything in that story. So thank you for that. That's awesome. There's 2 things I have to ask before I have a couple of things I want to ask about Chinlock. But number one thing you said was talking about the $1 Million Man. I have to know, when you pick up the phone, does he start off the conversation with his laugh, or is he all business? I don't know why. I'm like, no, I picture, hello?
He does now for me, but no.
That's great.
At the time, he was very, hey, this is Teddy Biasi, the $1 Million Man. I got your email through my website. And, Ted has become, a dear friend. Most of the people we have up here, I just hit it off with these people. I mean, I respect them so much. I respect anyone in this business, and I love this business. I made a conscious decision 20 years ago that I wanted to write about what I loved about wrestling, not what I hate about it,
Exactly.
or not what, the dirty secrets or the
dirt
gossip
sheets.
or any of that stuff. I made a conscious decision that I loved it so much that I wanted to shine a positive light on it, and that's always been my philosophy and my MO, if you will. So I hit it off great with Ted, hit it off great with Ricky. I mean, I could call either of those guys up at a moment's notice and offer them, the chance to come back up here, and I know they would. We looked at bringing both of them back up for 5, and I just felt it was a little bit too close. Chinlock 10, you can guarantee Ricky Steamboat will be back, and Ted DiBiase if they're available and wanting to come back up. So yeah, same with Vicky and Tito, and I mean, TJ's a good friend of mine anyway. So yeah, it's interesting to take 20 years of connections and hard work and building up a reputation at a time when nobody really was doing what I did. And in 1999, when I launched the column here in the Wig, there were only 2 other wrestling columnists that I knew of anywhere. One of whom is now AEW's commentary, Alex Marvez.
Oh, really?
I started reading Alex's stuff in '98 when I got here at the Wig, and I found it on the Scripps Howard news service. And he was a huge influence for me because I enjoyed his writing style. I loved his voice, his writing voice, his passion. So he was, I've told him this in messages before, that he played a big role in what I do and why I do it. And there were a couple of other people who wrote here and there, but not on a regular basis. So when I started out, it was kind of unique.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him because I had never, just to be honest, I'd never heard of his work before, but watching the AEW event, like, I'm sitting there, and I mean, obviously everyone knows JR, and that was great to hear him calling pro wrestling again, and of course Excalibur, but I'm listening to this other guy, and I'm like, man, like, he has such a different, unique voice for wrestling, and he's almost, at times, he was so almost soft-spoken, it made you listen more to what he was saying. So it's funny you mention him, because I actually really liked his commentary style. I turned to Sam more than once and was like, kind of almost at first, I was kind of like, not making fun of him, but just like, because I was like, I hadn't heard a wrestling commentator that was like that soft-spoken and almost serious with some things. So it was really funny, but I was like, man, this guy's great. I really like what he's doing. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys doing it now, but Alex was one of the first. Like I said, when I got here and discovered his column on the wire service that we had here, I used to read it faithfully.
That's awesome. Well, you've talked about the event, so let's jump into that now. June 15th is the event. Chinlock 5 is happening. It's at the Leon Center in Kingston. With the Legends Convention and, of course, the actual Chinlock 5 wrestling event happening, take us through the Legends Convention and kind of what and who people can expect to see at that particular convention.
So that convention, it's taken on a life of its own. Booking that convention with Tommy was, one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. We have Bret the Hitman Hart as our headliner. I mean, what can I say about
huge.
Bret? He's one half of my favorite match of all time, with him and Stone Cold at WrestleMania.
Yes.
I'm one of my best friends on planet Earth is Natty. I mean, there's not very many days or weeks that go by where we don't talk or text. TJ's a dear friend of mine. Natty's sisters are friends of mine. So it's nice now, to bring Bret down. I mean, we've always wanted Bret, but Bret is an all-time great. Bret's an elite legend, so he obviously costs more money than other legends. So we've had our eyes on, we bounced some different ideas by, we talked about Ric Flair. We looked at Sting. Honestly, I probably haven't said this to anybody. We were we felt we were close to having Edge and Christian and Beth Phoenix, but it didn't work out. But Brett was always among the group of Chinlock organizers. Brett was always the first name that everybody threw out. So we're very fortunate that we reached out to Brett, and Brett took the booking, because at this point in his life, Brett picks and chooses what he wants to do, and we're honored to have him. Mark Henry was a huge booking for us. That's on Tommy. He's a friend of Tommy's. They're on Busted Open together. By all accounts, Mark is one of the nicest human beings on earth. So very big deal to have Mark Henry coming here. Two of the original Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, again, friends of Tommy's, coming here strictly because Tommy's asking. Tommy booked the Legends Convention. I mean, I booked Tugboat, Fred Ottman. I booked Jimmy Hart, and I booked Dreamer, obviously, but Tommy and Jimmy Corderas. But Tommy booked everybody else. So Billy Gunn, Swoggle, known as Hornswoggle in WWE. Like I said, Jimmy Corderas, Billy Gunn, Dreamer. So it's just stacked. We have 10 legendary WWE personalities, 6 of whom are in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what else to say. The lineup for the evening, we've got 3 of them in matches. Billy Gunn will team up with Dreamer to face Tyson Dukes and Tarek of the Pillars, with special guest manager Spenny, who had a match last year at Chinlock 4 with Tyson Dukes. So we'll get those guys back together again. Quack, quack. And Swoggle will face RJ City, which I think will just be magical. RJ City's so talented. Everybody knows how talented Swoggle is. So, not only are the legends, some of the legends going to be there during the day, but they're also going to be on the show at night. And so booking that Legends Convention, the key for me and the heart of Chinlock is that it's to be affordable. That's always been the MO. That always will be the MO. If you're going to have a charity event, number one, and this is for anybody out there who is listening, who thinks they want to run a charity event is only a charity event if you donate all the money to charity.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're running an event with proportion of proceeds being donated to a charity. It's not a charity event. It is an event with proceeds going to charity. Big distinction, big difference. Chinlock Wrestling is a full charity event. No one takes anything from this other than the people who perform and are paid for their performances. I take nothing. Justin takes nothing. Everything goes to the charity. So, that's always been how we built this company, was we wanted it to be affordable and family-friendly entertainment. So our matches are not bloody. They're not violent. Yeah, we've had a couple of garbage cans in there. But it's not gratuitous. And we've always had a $10 ticket, and we still have a $10 ticket. Unfortunately, Ticketmaster has fees, and there are taxes this time because we're running in a city-owned venue versus, running ourselves. So you can't get a ticket for $10. You can get it for $13 with fees. But this whole Legends event was built to be a fraction of the price of a Comic-Con or something similar. I saw, I think it was Ring of Honor has something coming up, or had something coming up in Toronto, and I saw their packages for their meet and greets, and they were more expensive than we have. And to me, that's crazy. For $200 plus taxes and fees, you can meet all of our legends, get an autograph from them, bring your own item. We'll provide you with an item, a selfie with all of them, and a ticket in the first 2 rows of the wrestling show at night. The next level down is $150. You get the same thing, except you get a general admission ticket to the show. If you want to meet one legend, it's $15, except for the headliner, Brett, who's $60. Brett comes with a ticket to the show. If you buy 3 of the legend packages for individual legends, you get a ticket to the show. Tickets to the show range from $10 to $25. And that's it. I mean, we built this so that people could come out and meet their heroes and not feel like they couldn't go buy groceries, because they did. There's nothing worse to me than wanting to do something and being able to do something but not being able to afford it.
Or having
this money's going to charity. So a $10 ticket that you might pay $60 or $70 for at a concert or a similar wrestling event, that's worth $100 to the charity. That $10 is worth $100 to the charity. Sean has told me this time and again. Every dollar donated has $10 in value in programming for charity. So, you buy a $10 ticket to the show, it's like handing over a $100 bill to a charity. It's that valuable. So that's why we've always, built our show around affordability. Obviously, we have to pay the legends and all this talent and run this event. So, we can't give them away, but we're pretty close to giveaway point with all these prices.
Especially for the Legends event. I mean, that guys you just heard, he's talking about some huge names that just to get to meet someone like Bret Hart or Mark Henry or, these are big, huge names in the wrestling business. And for, that pretty small price, all things considered, to meet these legends, and you get to go to the event. I mean, what's not to like about that? It's absolutely crazy.
The event itself has the lineup has exceeded anything I ever imagined. I mean, there are 9 matches now, but I mean, you're talking the main event now is Sami Callihan versus Willie Mack. I mean, that is a main event show on any wrestling promotion in the world. WWE, AEW, New Japan, Ring of Honor, you name it. That is a main event on any card, anywhere, anytime. And here it is in Kingston on top of a Chinlock wrestling show that also features Madison Rayne, Addie Starr, Beautiful Bia, and our champion Jesse Mack in a fatal 4-way. We got a Rumble. We got, like I said, we got Dreamer and Billy Gunn teaming up. We've got Hornswoggle, RJ City. We got some local people in matches. It's just stacked.
Absolutely stacked. And I'm very excited because this is actually going to be the first independent wrestling show I've actually really gone to. I went to a couple back in the day, but as far as being a full-fledged now, I really have an appreciation for what I'm watching. And the one I actually went to was one was at a fair, and I saw Billy Gunn there. So I'm very excited to see him not at the Ono Fair. So that'll be very exciting. But you mentioned some of these matches here, and again, guys, like, this is a stacked card. Like, I would put that, even me personally saying this, I'd put that card against anything. It is absolutely stacked. But
it really is. I mean, again, it's Justin and I have been working hard. Tommy, added Sami Callihan for us a couple of weeks ago, which I think brought us right over the top. I mean, we already had a really nice lineup at that point, but when you can add a guy of Sami Callihan's distinction, talent, popularity, it's a big deal. And Willie Mack is one of the best kept secrets in pro wrestling. So these two guys are both top talents in wrestling. Both could work anywhere on any given day and be major players. So I'm really proud of everything we've been able to put together here. We even have a celebrity factor with Bill Welichka taking on CJ Felony. A match that I will be refereeing after an incident at one of our sponsors' stores the other day. The Rumble is always fun. We'll have some surprises in the Rumble like we always do. There's a special match this year. We're unveiling our second championship belt, which is named in memory of my late brother. We have the Cale Murphy Memorial Championship. We have one more semifinal. One semifinal is happening tomorrow, downtown Kingston, outdoor at our free show. The final semifinal will happen when Bill and CJ Felony square off at our show on June 15th. The winner of that match and the winner of the match tomorrow advance to the final, which will also happen on June the 15th. So, someone will get to become the inaugural Cale Murphy champion. My family will be there to see it. My parents, my grandparents. It's obviously something I've wanted to do for a long time, and what better place to do it than, a huge venue following a huge event with some of my favorite people, my family, my Chinlock family. It's just going to be a special night.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned that new championship. Was your brother a big fan of wrestling as well?
He was not a big fan of wrestling. I mean, we used to goof around in the basement and stuff, and he would always, he knew, he'd watch wrestling with me once in a while, but, he played hockey and was really into sports, or I took the sports entertainment road. But just before he died, he had gotten to see a little bit of my success because, like I mentioned, in 1998, I started here. I had started pursuing covering WWE when I was in college. By the time I got here in 98, by 99, early 99, I convinced the editor that the Wig needed a regular wrestling column in the paper, which ran from 1999 to 2004. So my brother got to see, a lot of my success, getting to cover wrestling, getting to go cover my first WrestleMania, covering a SummerSlam, covering, different live events, and, starting to build a name, getting interviews with WWE talent. So by 2006, when he died, he had sort of seen what was starting to unfold for me in wrestling. But, when I look around my office today, or when I take any time to really stop and think about all the amazing things that have happened to me and continue to happen to me, there's just no way that he hasn't played a role in that, steering me in the right direction. And this will be a nice way to honor him. After he died, we ran a ball tournament for a couple of summers, but then it just stopped happening. So this is a good way for me, 13 years later, to, keep his memory alive, honor him. He's gonna have friends that, the people who don't even watch wrestling, friends of his, are buying tickets to come, and it will be a special night.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head by saying, that you got to believe that he's going to be there looking down, watching this take all this happen. And it's a beautiful, beautiful championship belt, by the way. And it definitely,
thank you.
I'm sure will do.
Justin and Jason designed that belt. And the same person who produced our Chinlock Heavyweight Championship produced that belt for us. So it's beautiful.
That's
my brother liked lime green. It's got a little bit of lime green in it. We went with silver this time on the black strap. It's got a little picture of him engraved on it. I'll have a special shirt that evening that I'll be wearing. There'll be a tribute to my brother.
That's so awesome. That's very cool to hear. It's always nice when you can, as much as it's obviously unfortunate when our loved ones leave us, if there's something we can do to, commemorate them, that's always the best way to go.
Yeah, this show is just going to be, so special. I mean, I really hope that Kingston and, surrounding area and people will come out to this event. I mean, these types of things don't happen all that often. Like I said at the beginning, there's a $94,000 budget on this show. I mean, so you can imagine, and we had the venue donated, so you can imagine an event like this at full cost.
It'd be insane.
You'd be putting up a couple $100,000 on this, right? And you think about that's why when you see events like this, or when you go to a signing. I was at a signing with Ric Flair in Toronto a month ago, and I paid over $200 to get Ric Flair's autograph and photo for a sum total of 45 seconds of my life. Cost me $200, but Ric Flair is like a god, right? I mean, so Ric Flair's on the same level as Bret Hart. So you got a chance to come down here and stand in the presence of Bret. Tell him what he's meant to you. Get him to sign an item, a toy, a figure, a belt. You can bring whatever you want. There's no restrictions on what you can have signed at our show. I mean, I've been to places where you pay premium prices with extra costs for belts and toys and magazines and things like this. So you can bring whatever you want. If you got a championship belt signed by 15 other wrestlers, bring it along. It's the same $60 no matter what you bring. So there's a real opportunity for people to make this event more than a one-off. Let me put it this way. If this event is successful, I already know the Leon's owner is behind this if we want to do it again. But in order for us to do this again, I need a lot of people to come to this show and this event and make this thing a success.
Definitely. And I mean, I hope that that can happen. I mean, I feel in my heart it's going to. It's such a great event, and it being for charity and the youth division and that. I mean, I know that's either way. I know the people that are coming are going to absolutely love it, and I mean, myself and my little crew that are going, we're very, very excited about it, and I'm hoping that in having you on my show and with this chat, we can maybe stir up some more excitement around me here. And I want to ask more about the event, and particularly one match that is going to be happening on the event, and so much more. We still have a lot of ground to cover here, but we mentioned him earlier, and it is high time I give him the official shout out that I do every single episode, and that is my friend, Mr. Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you guys are looking for any kind of logos, t-shirts, banners, photo manipulation, album artwork, or original art, mailers for your business, anything and all you can imagine in the design world, you need to contact him today by going on his website, www.jaybird, that's Jaybird, digitalarts.com. Go on there, check out his gallery, see all the awesome stuff he does. He does unique work you're not going to find anywhere else in the world. I strongly feel that way. But also, you're going to get a great turnaround time, sometimes surprising turnaround time. My gosh, I don't think the guy ever sleeps. I'm sure Jan can attest to that. And also, you are going to get it at a very fair price. He gives you the design work you need that doesn't break the bank. So don't mess around with anyone else. Contact my man, Jason Reese, either via his social medias. Just search Jaybird Digital Arts, or again, the website is www.jaybird, that's Jaybird, digitalarts.com. And be sure to let him know that Hodder sent you. But there's a couple things I wanted to ask, just again with kind of some stuff you touched on. One of which is the matchup happening between CJ Felony and Bill. How did kind of that whole thing start? Obviously, of course, it is in the semifinals there for the championship. But how did kind of that whole issue start with them? We know that we've kind of heard, CJ Felony around before. He likes to make his presence known and likes to seem to stir up trouble anytime you're doing something. But talk to me a little bit about that and what exactly happened the other day at that Leon store.
Well, there's a history between, obviously between Justin and I. We have this dynamic where we co-own this company, so we have to make decisions together. And behind the scenes, Justin Cousineau is a an incredible talent as far as booking a wrestling show goes. He understands the business. He knows me like few other people. He always makes the best decisions and decisions that are in the best interest of Chinlock, but he struggles to be both wrestler and promoter, or co-owner. And I've said to him many times, almost from day one, you should hang up the tights and just run this company with me. Let's focus on the growth of Chinlock. Forget wrestling. Forget it. You're in your mid 30s. The odds of you going to WWE at this point are getting slimmer. He just wants to be involved with the show. So he and I we've had issues. We've had issues from. We didn't have any issues in the first year, but by year 2, we started to have some issues. He and Bill had issues in year 2 as well. We had Bill as a special guest on our show in year 2. Bill and there was a tag team match. I think it was Total Devastation. We're in a match with the Barbarians, and the Barbarians were managed by the $1 Million Man, and Bill was involved in that match as well. And anyway, he and Justin had some incident, and that stems all the way back to there. Justin takes umbrage with the fact that Bill wants to be involved in wrestling. I mean, Bill has had matches. He's been involved in matches. He's refereed. He's been around wrestling. He's interviewed a who's who of wrestlers in his career. So he's passionate about it. He likes to be around it. He chooses to be around it for me because of our friendship and because it's for charity. Bill will do anything for charity. Bill and I went up and did some appearance in Smith Falls a few years ago where we managed opposite each other. So anytime that I can involve Bill in one of our shows, I do. And last year where it really got off the rails was, Justin uses his anger with me and his resentment of me and the fact that so many people view me as Chinlock. Again, that wouldn't happen if he had listened to me and, came out and stood beside me as the co-owner of Chinlock Wrestling rather than trying to juggle both roles. If he just listened to me and we did this together, not everybody would be pointing at me and saying, Jan Murphy, Chinlock Wrestling, Jan Murphy, Chinlock Wrestling. They would be saying, Jan and Justin, Chinlock Wrestling. So last year, I had to suspend Justin and, tried to keep him off the show last year due to his attacking of, some of my friends. He hit me with a garbage can the year before. But I still was willing to have him on the show. I just asked him what he wanted to do, and he wouldn't answer me. And when I eventually ran out of patience with him, I just said, okay, you're off the show. If you don't have something you want from me, I have no need for you. So when I did that, he attacked my trainer. He attacked my little buddy RJ. He attacked the owner of Geno's. It was ridiculous. So we had Bill Welichka Appreciation Night last year. Again, Bill has done a lot for Chinlock. Bill has done a lot for professional wrestling. I wanted to pay tribute to Bill and surprise him with his hero, the Honky Tonk Man. Bill had no idea the Honky Tonk Man was coming to be part of Bill Welichka Appreciation Night, much as I had no idea that CJ Felony was going to crash the party. CJ Felony crashed the party and attacked Bill and gave him 2 DDTs. And thankfully, I had booked the Honky Tonk Man as a surprise, who literally I had to bring in the building after, Bill went out to the ring because he went out and saved Bill. And it was quite a nice moment. But anyway, that's where that stems. Bill said to me after the show, as much as he loved the Honky Tonk Man coming in as a surprise, and how grateful he was for it, he was bothered by the fact that his moment and our moment was ruined. I mean, we would have had the Honky Tonk Man come out and serenade Bill. That was the plan. He was going to come out and sing for him, and they were going to do something together. And that was all ruined. So when I went on to the show with Bill earlier this year to announce this event and promote this event, Bill asked me flat out on the air if he could have CJ Felony at Chinlock 5, and I said yes. So Justin didn't like it. CJ Felony didn't like it, obviously, but here we go again. Like, do you want to be on the show or do you not want to be on the show, right? You're telling me in one breath you want to be on the show, then you don't want to do what I want you to do on the show. So I can't win. Bill and I were at Leon's this week to announce a special promotion, which is actually happening right now. The Leon's owners, bought a whole bunch of tickets from us for this event, and they're giving them out with every purchase at Leon's. So we went there to make the announcement. And right in the middle of a Facebook Live, Justin came in and attacked me from behind and attacked Bill, and they had basically a short skirmish in the store, which was caught on camera. So it's on our Facebook page. You can see it. Thankfully, no charges were laid. I managed to talk to Chris McKercher, the Leon's owner, and convince him that he's better to let it happen on June 15th. I'm in the ring, to call the match down the middle. Bill wants, revenge on Justin, and Justin's not taking Bill seriously. CJ Felony, typical fashion, not taking Bill seriously. He's looking right past him, claiming he's going to become the Cale Murphy Memorial Champion just to rub it in and ruin my life. But that's not going to happen because, I have lots of confidence in Bill and lots of faith in Bill. So that's that story. It goes back to Chinlock 2. And it's kind of festered ever since. And when CJ Felony interrupted Bill Wilichka Appreciation Night, he basically, sealed his fate right there with that. So now, Bill, a TV anchor. Yes, he's a TV anchor. He's a famous TV anchor. He's a famous original Much Music VJ, the original. There was nobody else before Bill. So it's pretty cool. He's older, but I always say you don't want to fight the little guys. You don't want to fight those little guys. Those little guys are crazy. So if I'm CJ Felony, I'm not looking past Bill Wilichka to the Cale Murphy title because while you're looking past Bill, he'll knock you right out. So that's the history of that one.
And I'm sure I speak for everybody when I say that we can't wait to see him get laid out by Bill. And I mean, I want to just quickly touch on one more thing before we move on with this. Obviously, as you were saying, you've had quite a history with CJ Felony. After that Facebook Live, I know you did a video and you were, it had looked like he had poked you in the eye or something like that. And because you are going to be the special guest referee, and obviously you are no slouch, but do you have any kind of plan of action if CJ tries to get cute in the ring with you at all, or are you going to try and keep it as down the middle as possible? What's kind of your game plan going into it?
I'm going to call this match, fairly right down the middle. I just want to make sure that, he's not cheating. He's not going to cheat Bill out of this match. He's not going to, cost Bill this match through his, ridiculous antics, or he's not going to get away with it. That is my role in this match, to just make sure that it's a fair fight. I'm not going to interfere. I'm not going to lay my hands on CJ Felony. I'm not a wrestler. I mean, yeah, I work out. I'm a fairly big guy. I could probably hold my own, but I'm not a wrestler. And it's not about me. It's about them. But my role is to make sure that CJ Felony doesn't cheat. That's what he does. He cheats. He, flagrantly cheats. He flagrantly violates the rules. He'll do whatever it takes. And there's a lot on the line in this match. Bill has said if he loses this match, that's it for his singles career. He wants to, beat Justin as a way of standing up to bullies everywhere, because that's what he believes that CJ Felony is. And he's not wrong. The guy is a bully. I mean, he comes down wearing a mask that, has a skull on it. He's dressed in black, and, he runs his mouth. So, my role in all of this will be to make sure it's a fair fight and there is no cheating. There won't be countouts. I'm not going to let this match end in a countout. I'll tell you that right now. There'll be no countouts in this match. It will be a fair fight, and if the best man will win this match. As long as I'm in that ring, the best man will win this match.
Absolutely, and that's at the end of the day, that's what it should come down to. It should come down to who is the better athlete out of the two of them, who is the better professional wrestler, not who can cheat to win or who is the better at the antics of attacking someone from behind. So that's very good to hear for myself, and I'm very much looking forward to that match. I mean, of course, I still hope that the good guys can prevail, and that it is definitely hitting the nail on the head, saying that taking down a bully like CJ Felony, this is me saying this in my opinion, I think would definitely be one of the highlights of the show for me personally.
Well, it'll certainly be a fair fight. There'll be no garbage cans or any of that nonsense.
Very good to hear. So I wanted to ask about a couple more things, so long as I've got you for a little more time here.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So I want to ask, speaking on Justin, CJ Felony, whatever you like to call him, he also is a part of the Chinlock Wrestling School, which is something I've been following religiously the last little while, and I'm really excited about, because I know that there are schools around here, but what is exactly Chinlock's Wrestling School, and what was kind of your goal with that, and how did that come into the picture?
It's something that we talked about, probably before Chinlock. I mean, there like you said, there were schools around. I guess the creation of Chinlock firmed it up as something that we believed would happen at some point, because if we have a wrestling company, it makes sense to have some of your own talent. And Jesse Mack has been our talent. Catalyst has been our talent. Lots of people have appeared on all of our shows. We have a few people. Obviously, CJ Felony has been a mainstay. But, once we realized that we were here to stay, and this year we decided, conscious decision, to run more than just our charity show. We have run one other event. Tomorrow we will be announcing another event that will happen in 2019. And we have plans for as many as 3 other events before the calendar closes on 2019. So earlier this year, the opportunity to get a venue came along, and we purchased a ring last year, or earlier this year. I guess it was last year. We purchased a ring that needed some work, but the intention was, when we purchased that ring, that would be our opening to have a school. Something we both have aspired to for a number of years, but it felt like the timing was right. Again, everything for me is about feeling. I felt the time was right to do a charity show when I suggested that to that person. I felt the time was right to do a second one and a third one, and I felt the time was right to do this 5th super event, even though we haven't established ourselves much beyond the city itself. So it just felt right. So when we had the ring, we found a venue. Both of us And like I said, this is where it might be hard for you to, to separate what happens between us, where it pertains to a wrestling show, and what happens between us behind the scenes. We work so well together behind the scenes on building this company, on planning things. We agree on almost everything. Our philosophies, clash when it comes to the show itself. Again, Justin wants CJ Felony to be involved in our shows, where I just want Justin to work with me to build the future.
Absolutely.
Chinlock Wrestling School fell into place. The time was right. I can't say enough nice things about the work that Justin has put into that. That is all him. He goes there. He trains the students. He set it up. He fixed the ring. He's put a lot of money into into the ring. He's put a huge investment into himself and into the students that we have there now. I'm proud to say that every student who was there on week 1 is still there today. I was there 3 nights ago, and it's just fascinating to see these kids bumping now and running the ropes and drop downs and lockups, and it's pretty amazing. I went a couple of times early on, then I hadn't been there in a couple of weeks, and I went back the other night, and I was just blown away.
That's awesome. And I mean, following it religiously on the social media, it's cool, so cool to see people progress from, when you first start off, some people kind of look a little, not scared, but maybe a little nervous. It's the first time they're getting inside a wrestling ring. And that can be, I'm sure, a very intimidating thing where you've been watching it your whole life, but it's different to step in between those ropes and, whoa, this is, it's very different. And taking your first bump and, running the ropes for the first time, I'm sure it can be a very, intimidating thing when you first do that. So it's cool to see just the look on people's faces and that seemingly that confidence going into these young upstarts, so to speak, as they're progressing. Is there, obviously it's still very early in the class in that, but what's kind of been the overall, feel of it so far? Like, has there kind of been anyone that's kind of been rises above the pack a little bit, or has it been pretty good even so far? Is everybody doing really well?
Everybody's doing very well. Everybody brings their own unique characteristics, unique skills. We have one, and I've said this to this person, privately. I've said this to Justin. If this person takes this seriously, and something that I've said to all of them is this is an investment and needs to be an investment in yourself. So the best place you can spend money in your life is on your health and on yourself, especially in professional wrestling. You need to have a good look. You need to have a good physique. You need to work out. You need to eat well, and you need to train. You need to have a look. We have somebody in the class. He's very tall. He's young. He's in pretty good shape. There is massive advantages to being over 6 feet tall.
Absolutely.
Being young, and if he sits down and really takes it seriously and eats well, trains, builds up his muscles, boy oh boy, there's no ceiling for someone like that. I love the effort when I go there and I watch. We have a 16-year-old girl. We have a younger boy, struggles socially, comes out, he's fit right into this group. His confidence grows every week. We have a couple of guys who are older who tackling this for the first time. We have one guy who's just an absolute tank, just a tank. And you know, we're both so excited to have our own talent on a show someday. I've told these guys, I said, look, you all know me, you know my connections. So getting you guys in front of the right set of eyes is not out of the realm of possibility. So it's not like it once was. I mean, we're going to bring in some special guests here and there. We may send them from our school to go finish their training with a Tyson Dukes or a Lance Storm, or somewhere where they can do some other things. And but for now, they're starting very basically, and they're going to learn the right way, because they're learning from a guy who's been in this business for 20 some years, who is beyond patient with and supportive with people. I mean, you talk about having the right mentality to mold a mind, or to earn someone's trust and get them to understand you and to work with you. Justin's patience are endless, which just flies in the face of CJ Felony. I mean, it's like a multiple split personality
Two
disorder.
different guys.
It really is. I get it though. You get in the ring. I've been in the ring a few times. It's invigorating. It's it's addicting. So he's addicted to that. To that rush when he gets in there, and he forgets who he is. He becomes CJ Felony, and it's a great quality to have. But I think time has passed him by. I really think his focus should be on teaching others, helping me grow this company. But he continues to want to be involved in the wrestling side of things, and that's where we clash.
Definitely as you've said, two very different people when you're dealing with Justin and we're dealing with CJ. And I mean, with the class, I see pictures of him, and I've heard from a friend of mine who actually is in the class, and how he's such a great guy. And, I can't believe that they're two different people. And it's just, man, I wish that he would just maybe sometimes just be this guy instead of being CJ. But, like you said, it's that addiction to the, to that rush of, going in and, getting your way, I guess, in a certain way, or it definitely can be addicting when you're a bully, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Well, and when you're a part owner, I think, it gives you this chip on your attitude that, like, well, what are you going to do about it, Murphy? Like, You can't fire me, right? I can't fire him, but I can keep him off the shows. Or I can try.
Can try at least, yeah, definitely. Well, that's very cool.
I tell you what I can do. I can call a fair match down the middle on June 15th, and that's where I'm focused.
Exactly, and that's the plan. And I mean, nothing's going to be getting past you. So I was very glad to hear you were named the special guest referee for that, because I was a little worried that he might try and sneak a win out. So that was definitely very excited to hear that. Yeah,
so the school's great. I literally can't wait to watch one of our students, or some of our students reach the point where they get to have a match.
Yeah, that will be definitely something very excited. I'll be very excited about, and I mean, I'm going to be watching it very closely. And as you've said, there's so many great, talented people that are going through there right now. So it's definitely something that's very, very exciting for the future of Chinlock, as not just a promotion that will bring in other people, but also as a promotion to have your own homegrown talent, more homegrown talent. Of course, you do have people at the moment, but that's very cool. So kind of to start to wrap up our chat here, I wanted to ask you, as I know how passionate you are about wrestling and that, I wanted to ask you a few things on that note. When did you kind of first get into wrestling? And do you remember kind of the first wrestling that you saw?
Yeah, my parents I grew up in the village of, first in Strathcona, which is literally like a street, not far from Napanee, between here and Napanee. When we moved from there over to Camden East, I think I was 12 at the time. So that would have been 80, 76, so 88. And we went over to my aunt and uncle's who lived in the village at the time, and my uncle was watching this wrestling on TV, and it turned out it was WrestleMania 3, I guess, 88, right? And I was just like, what is this? I watched it, and I went to school, and I asked my friends, and some of my friends were like, yeah. So we started, there was a small group of us at Newburgh Public School who used to wrestle in the schoolyard. Or Rob Plumley, I always like to tell this story. He lived like literally a 3-minute walk from the public school. So, we all became friends with Rob. He had a pool, and his parents, had a satellite dish, which, most everyone else's parents did. In those days, it was the friggin' dish you'd see on the moon now. Yeah. So the pay-per-views would be on there, and we would go over to Rob's, and we would watch these pay-per-views. They'd get dropped off, and, we'd sit down in Rob's basement, and his parents had a sectional couch. I can still see his basement when I close my eyes and think about it, and I can still see us all sitting down there watching these pay-per-views. And that's where it all started. I mean, I used to, at that point, I became obsessed with it, and it just was just awesome. And by the time I hit high school, Stone Cold Steve Austin came along, like high school and college. I lost interest a little bit through my early years of high school, but by the end of high school, 96 and 97, it became insane. Stone Cold came along. I was working at, my part-time job. A couple of people there liked it as well. It became my obsession again. I used to, when I went to college, I would scramble home on Monday after classes so that I could drive to my buddy's house and watch Raw. And that was during the height of the Attitude Era. And at that point, that was it. I was done. Like my obsession with wrestling was so strong. So yeah, it started, like I say, on the couch in 87 or 88, and when we moved to Camden East, and just festered from there. And now I just can't imagine my life without wrestling.
Yeah, it's something that you always remember the first time you really sit down and go like, well, like, what is this? What is this thing? And someone kind of go, oh, it's wrestling. And you're like, well, what's going on here? And then you sit, and it's such a, it's such a spectacle to watch. It has everything you could possibly need: athleticism and, action, drama, the full 9 yards. You get everything, and every level of entertainment, and even comedy, and especially in the Attitude Era. I mean, you're talking, that was the height of, and I'm not one of those people that's, oh, the Attitude Era was the only wrestling era and they need to go back to that. I'm not one of those guys, but I mean, I very much appreciate the Attitude Era and, of course, what it did for wrestling. But I'm more of a, pro wrestling guy, but it's such a unique spectacle, wrestling. And
yeah, I mean, things have changed for me over the years too. I mean, I've become, I remember watching Stone Cold win his first championship, and the whole swerve with Mike Tyson and Shawn Michaels, and like I remember, like, it seemed so real to me then, even though I knew the outcomes were not. I vividly remember, jumping up and, waving my arms and carrying on, because I wanted this person. I was so invested in this character and in this story that I wanted him to win that championship. It meant everything to see him win that championship. And I still can experience that once in a while. It's not to the same sort of level, but, when something happens, along those lines, when I get invested into something, I still get that feeling. It's different. I'm 42, not 18 or 19 or 20 or 21. But it's still, to me, it's wonderful. I mean, I had a debate with somebody on Facebook the other night because they thought I was crazy for saying Brock was in my top 5 because he's the whole package. And then they wanted me to explain myself, and I thought, I see wrestling so differently than so many other people. I think as a promoter now, I think as a fan, I think as I've been in the ring. When I watch Brock, and no one can tell me otherwise. Psychologically, he understands the psychology of wrestling like few others. He's probably at the top of the industry as far as his understanding of the psychology of wrestling. If you watch how he acts during a match or what he does at a certain time, everything has a purpose. It's quite smart, and to the untrained eye, I see it. Yeah, they might go, oh yeah, he does 16 F5s to John Cena. Well, think about that on a psychological level. John Cena has never had anyone ragdoll him the way that Brock ragdolled him. And why 16? 16-time champion, 16 F5s, absolutely obliterates John Cena. Think of the match he had with Finn Balor. How he got Finn Balor over more than Finn Balor has been over in WWE. That's Brock. Brock understands it. Brock is a terrific worker, and the psychology in Brock's repertoire is unrivaled. He's a badass. I mean, he looks like a badass. He brings legitimate, almost no one else can bring. He brings that chip on his shoulder that comes through in his character, and he brings Paul Heyman. So anyone who says that Brock is no good on the mic, Brock is Paul Heyman. Who's better than Paul Heyman on the mic in wrestling today? Brock does it all. That's why Brock is the guy. Whether he works, 6 matches a year, or 16 matches a year, or 60 matches, he has no equal. So for me, when someone tries to tell me that they're sick of Brock Lesnar, I just shake my head and I go, you just don't get it. You just don't get it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm guilty of that as well, where sometimes I'll be like, man, I don't want him to be the champion or whatever. I want to see our champion with the belt on Raw and all that. But, there's a spectacle to what he does that really is unmatched. Like there's things he brings to the table. And I mean, the character work he's doing right now with the whole Brock party thing and that, it's just, It's great. And he is an entertaining dude. And, you're touching on Paul Heyman and that. I mean, who does better mic work than Paul Heyman? I mean, really, it's just, he really is one of those guys that when you think of some of the, like you're saying in your top 5 in that, there's not a lot of guys who can do what he does and what he brings to the table with his whole package.
And, the people will throw the argument out there, and this argument was put out there too, that they want to see the Universal Championship defended on TV. Well, tell me that the Universal Champion or the WWE Championship or the Intercontinental Championship or the U.S. Championship or the Tag Team Championships or the Women's Championships, with the exception right after WrestleMania, do any of those titles excite you right now? They don't.
Yeah.
They've been so reduced to nothing. None of those titles are special. So why does everyone want or insist that the Universal title should be on somebody who is on TV regularly? What difference have we seen in Seth Rollins carrying that Universal Championship that we didn't see prior to that? I've seen nothing different in Seth Rollins' game. Nothing. Seth is a talented wrestler. He's one of the top 5 talents on the roster today. But tell me what that title has done for him now that everybody got their wish and it's not on a guy who only shows up with it every, couple of months. What's the big difference? I for one haven't seen it yet. I'm not buying it. I'm not in love with Seth Rollins, the Universal Champion. I don't get it.
Well, for sure. And I mean, and that's what's great about wrestling too, where I mean, some people who really truly understand what's going on and really understand the business, like someone like yourself, will see the logic behind it. And then, everyone gets what they want, and Seth Rollins is holding the belt, and it's like, what has he done with it? Like, I can definitely see your point and definitely agree with you on that. We're like, he's a great wrestler and definitely one of the best, but champions, even back in the day, were a true spectacle. You didn't see, they would come through the territory and it was a spectacle. You had to go and see the champion, whether it was, Ric Flair coming through with the belt, or, Harley Race, or names like that. It was this big spectacle to see them. And, there was a long period of time there where I was very much in that mindset too, where I was like, where's our belt? Where's our belt? We haven't seen it. And, as I kind of get a little, a little more seasoned in wrestling, I'm like, I kind of get it now.
The next question, not just to you, but to anyone, was in that camp that, the champion should be on the show every week. What is more interesting right now in wrestling? The Money in the Bank briefcase being carried by Brock Lesnar, or the Universal Championship being carried by Seth Rollins? What's more entertaining, and what's more interesting, and what has you more captivated right now?
Exactly. It's that money. I mean, for me personally, anyway, it's that Money in the Bank. Like,
right?
It's just, and that is such a great point. It's because of who's holding it, right? Because
Brock is an elite talent, and Brock is the best. The best in the company, and Brock is the draw. Brock had the title taken off him. They said, we need to do something. AEW is coming along. We got, we have TV commitments with Fox looming in the fall. Brock is no longer pursuing a career in UFC. Hey, Brock, what if we made you the Money in the Bank, contract? Sure, Vince. Let's see what you can do with it. And what he's done with it, far more compelling than what Seth has done as the champion so far. So, to me, it's not about the title. It's not about who carries it. It's about the talent. And Brock is simply showing us that he is the best talent in the WWE. He's the draw. He sells tickets. We already know that. He's a draw. But now he's showing us, he's going, well, I don't need the Universal Championship. You guys think that the Universal Championship defined Brock? Brock Lesnar defined the Universal Championship. He brought credibility to it, and now he's bringing credibility to a briefcase that he gimmicked up to look like a radio, a boombox. It's about Brock. It's not about, and that's where everything else is lacking, and that's why all those guys and girls in the back need to look to Brock as the example and go, look at how he got himself. Has any of the last few Money in the Bank holders gotten themselves over as the Money in the Bank holders the way Brock has in 3 short weeks?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. What are we talking about? Kevin Owens did a pretty good job when he had it, but there's no one else that I recall. The last time I could think of the Money in the Bank holder doing anything, it was when Seth cashed in at Wrestle. So, it's just my perspective. And when I hear people crapping on Brock, or crapping on the fact that he's a part-time champion, or that the title's being held by somebody who doesn't care about the business, or isn't there, he's not there every week. I mean, all these guys, they use it in storylines. I get that makes sense. That's a good angle to go at. But they don't believe that because they watch Brock go out and they watch how, he is the center of attention, whether he's holding a briefcase, whether he's holding the Universal Championship, or whether he's holding nothing. Brock's the face of WWE right now, whether people want to admit to it or not.
Well, and you look at how he came back with that surprise, when he ran in and he climbed up that ladder. It's like, I mean, I sure as hell didn't see that coming. And I mean, it wasn't like for me personally, even, it's like, man, like at first I was like, what? Like, what is, but then it's like, I've almost now like kind of turned a corner where I'm like, I can really see like exactly what you're saying and really be like, you know what? Like, look at what he's done. Look at what he's doing. Like, WWE needs players right now.
There's some people who will just never be pleased.
Exactly.
And you know what? If Vince walked out on Monday night this week and announced that the WWE was bringing back the Attitude Era, there would be like this short honeymoon period where everybody would be like, oh my God, it's back. We finally get what we wanted, what we've been screaming for. 3 weeks later, it would be no good to them. It wouldn't be good. And you know why? Because the Attitude Era wasn't about what they were doing. It was about the collection of talent in the right place.
Absolutely.
You're not going to put that collection of talent together at the right time, at the right place, probably ever again. But I swear to you, and I believe it in my heart of hearts, if Vince walked out next week and said, all the chains are off, we're going to start letting the talent, cut live promos, we're going to bring back blood, we're going to bring back chairs, we're going to bring back, tables, ladders, pudding matches, the whole 9 yards. We're 18 plus again. I guarantee you within a month people are bitching about it. That's just the way the internet wrestling community is now. They can't be satisfied, because if you can't look at Brock Lesnar as a wrestler and see how good he is and what he brings to the WWE, whether it's, like I said, 6 times a year or 60 times a year, you probably shouldn't be watching.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head with that. And I mean, if you, people are allowed to have different opinions in that, obviously, as I'm sure you can agree. But if people sit there every single time they see Brock and they're like, oh my God, seriously, he's killing the business. It's like, come on, man. Just, you try to, and I mean, I try to really look at the positive things. And, on this show, I like to talk a lot about positive things in life and kind of try to have that positive mental attitude. And I mean, I don't talk wrestling as much anymore on the show as I used to. And it's something that definitely, there's going to be a bit of resurgence on, but I definitely see your point a lot on that, that draw and that legitimacy that Brock Lesnar brings to the table.
Yeah. I mean, he's one example. I mean, the 24/7 championship. Do I think it's the most beautiful championship belt I've ever seen? No. Do I understand, what it's doing and what its purpose is? Yes. Am I entertained by what I've seen? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It gives some guys who, I mean, in one sense, you hear everybody jumping to the defense of Dustin Rhodes saying, yeah, take that, Vince. You never gave him the chance to go out and do what Cody did, and they had, and to make no mistake, that's one of the 5 best matches I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, absolutely.
And then in the other breath, they're crapping on Vince for trying to give some of these guys an opportunity to go out and see what they can do. Yeah, it's a little it's very reminiscent of the Hardcore Championship. And yeah, they sent Mick Foley out, and he didn't have, admittedly, his best promo prepared. But I just don't think this belt stood a chance in the same way that some of the talent coming up from NXT stand a chance because the fans at that level are either so jaded or so stuck in 1996 that it's really difficult. People have forgotten how to just sit back and be entertained.
Yes.
Everyone thinks that they need to do everything differently. Just be entertained. Am I entertained by everything I see on Monday night or on Tuesday night? No, of course I'm. There's times when I roll my eyes, or there's times when I go, I was a little bit irked by this or a little bit irked by that. But generally speaking, overall, sitting watching wrestling should bring you joy. If you truly, you should be able to see a little bit of good in everything. And I get through 3 hours of Monday. That's my only beef with Raw is it's 3 hours.
It's 3 hours, yeah. It's a lot of
like
Raw.
Watching Avengers Endgame every Monday. 3 hours is just asking a lot of my time.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I could sit and talk wrestling with you all night because I'm loving this conversation and where we're going with it. But we've been kind of burning the midnight oil, so to speak, here on the show. So I wanna thank you so much for your time, and I would love the opportunity to have you back on the show sometime just to talk a little more about wrestling. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Anytime you want me on every week, I'll be on every week. I'm happy to. I like talking wrestling. I really do. I appreciate you helping promote the show, and so many of our mutual friends have great things to say about you. So anytime you name it, I'll be there.
Awesome. Well, and I mean, thank you to those people, by the way, my friends. And it's just so funny that we've had kind of this weird, like 6 degrees of separation. And it was finally, I believe it was when I was speaking with Sam one day, and he was just like, dude, like, how do you know Jan? And I'm like, oh, Jason. He's like, what? And he's like, dude, like, it's just so weird that like we hadn't had this media yet. So I was really glad, and I'm very grateful for the time. Before we go, where can people find all the info about Chinlock 5 and about Chinlock Wrestling?
Well, our Facebook page is, the thing that I turn to most. Chinlock Wrestling on Facebook. Our website should have somewhat up-to-date information. Justin's a little bit behind on the web, but chinlockwrestling.com. The Leon Center website has information on Chinlock 5 and the ticketing, and you can buy tickets at the box office. We have some tickets out at some sponsors, Geno's at Amherst View, Division Street, SBT Comics and Games. Yeah, all that info's out there. We're down to 2 weeks, and then I can take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath, and it's going to be probably feel like, in a kind of a good way, that like the weight of the world's off your shoulders a bit, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then I'll keep asking, what's going to happen first? Chinlock 5 or the debut of Bray Wyatt? Got 2 Raws left.
Got 2 Raws left. Yeah, for sure. Well, again, thank you so much.
See Bray Wyatt in a wrestling ring or in the arena before we have Chinlock 5. Yes. I'm not sure.
I don't know. We're getting close, but we'll see what if he comes out of the Firefly Funhouse first, or what's going on there. I'm for one, I'm very much excited for that gimmick. But right before we go, I know I already said that, but I actually have in my possession, ladies and gentlemen who are listening right now, 4 tickets to the wrestling event. And I am doing a giveaway for them. If you're listening to the show, you're exclusively getting this information. I'm not going to be giving away the information until the week before the show to the general public. But I have 4 tickets. And if you would like to win tickets to that show, to, again, the actual wrestling event, if you want to get tickets to it and then you want to potentially go to the Legends event, you absolutely can do that. All you have to do is like and share this podcast, comment, tag myself and Janet and letting know that you want to go, and then go and share the the Chinlock 5 and the Legends Convention Facebook page, or the event page, if you will. Go ahead and share that, and you'll be entered to win. It's super easy. It's a great event, and as you guys heard, it's going to be some pretty exciting stuff going on.
All for charity.
All for charity. Absolutely. And I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some, I know from talking to my man Jason, there's going to be some cool merch as well going on that you can be rest assured you're going to want to get your hands on.
Right on.
Awesome. All right, Jan. Well, thank you so much again for the time, brother. Really appreciate it.
All right, bro. Thanks.
All right, gang. There you have it. My full chat with Jan Murphy from Chinlock Wrestling. We burned the midnight oil on that one, but that was a fun chat. Oh, I could have talked to Jan all night. I really could have. I feel like we could have gone for another 20 minutes, half an hour, but unfortunately we did. I had to cut the conversation. I hate doing that, but I had to cut the conversation as I was actually going to run out of data on my phone. I just said in the intro, I'd hook up to my hotspot because my internet completely died out. I was having a really crappy night that night with technology not agreeing with me, so I appreciate Dan being a good sport about me kind of having to cut him off. I hate doing that, but rest assured that Jan will definitely be on this show again. I had so much fun talking with him, and I hope that he had just as much fun as I did, and I feel like he did. I feel like he had a good time. So what's not to like when both of the people you have on the show can have a good time? Everybody wins. If you have any questions at all about the event or about the giveaway that I announced, feel free to hit me up. I already know there's a few of you who are going to be pining for those tickets. So if you have any interest at all, do not mess around. Again, just in case you missed it for some reason in that little last bit, all you have to do is share this podcast and then share the Facebook event page and then tag Jan and I so that we know that you shared them. Sometimes stuff gets lost. Usually with shares we can see it, but just to make sure, be sure to tag Jan and I just to be safe, as things tend to get lost sometimes in the soup, if you will, of Facebook. So want to make sure that you guys get entered if you want the tickets. And I already know there's going to be a lot of people wanting those tickets, so don't mess around. You can go on Chinlock's Facebook page to find the event and all the information on said event. Thank you very much again, Jan, for coming on, my brother. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Jason for kind of being the connection a little bit in that, and as well as my boy Sam Hudson, who we did kind of tongue-in-cheek mention a couple times during the episode. We didn't really say his name. Well, I'm sure he knew we were talking about him, and I'm sure he appreciates it. Just like I appreciate you for listening through to the very end of this podcast. Thank you so very, very much. If you want to take a second to give us a follow here at The Hotter Show, I would very much appreciate it, whether you're listening on the SoundCloud or iTunes or actually iTunes doesn't exist anymore as of I think next month, so it's going to be Apple Podcasts now, the Apple Podcast app. Or if you listen in on Spotify or Stitcher or Castbox or Podcoin, or if you listen in on the YouTube, perhaps you should hit that follow button, subscribe, like, whatever you can do. I very much appreciate it. It helps out the show. Check out some other content as well. If you enjoyed this interview, I've done a lot of other great interviews in the archives. I have well over 200 hours of content for you. So if you're looking for something to do, you're looking to get some entertainment, I have you covered. Do not worry about that. We got you here on The Hotter Show. Don't even fret. While you're at it, be sure to go ahead and follow The Hotter Show on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Don't really use Twitter much anymore, if I'm being honest, but if you are very active on Twitter, be sure to follow us on there. I'm mostly active on Instagram nowadays. It's like Instagram. Well, it just kind of is what it is. But as well, you can check us out on the Podbeard Network website. That's podbeardnetwork.com/The Hotter Show. I have all my links on there, as well as a player for the website itself. So if you don't want to download any apps and you don't have another way to listen to the show, you don't like YouTube or whatever the hell, you can go on there and listen on any kind of mobile devices, browser, or on your computer browser. Super easy. You don't have to mess around with any apps or anything. And that is going to do it for me here today. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. And again, thank you to all of the the potential listeners from the Chinlock community. I'm sure I'm going to get a few nice comments. Seem like there's some great people in that community. I'm very much looking forward to the event next next week, I have a killer interview with Matt Stock from Mean Tactical. I'm very much looking forward to talking about another great event that is actually also happening on June 15th. But we will talk about that next week as I'm going to take off here. So remember to keep it positive, guys. That positive mental attitude, PMA to the grave. And always remember, if you have the opportunity to make life a little brighter for someone else, do so. It makes the world a much better place for everybody. Peace and love, and I'll catch you next time on The Harder Show. Take it easy, guys.